everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those who don't know me, my name is Andrea. I'm also known as the Slow Coach. I'm based in St Ives, just north of Sydney, and I am a running coach, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate your time and your attention tonight. I am going to introduce my friend and colleague, Penny Dillon, in just a minute, and she will chat to us about mood and food and all the beautiful ways that those interact. But just before I introduce her, I'm going to just talk to you for 5 minutes or so about myself, about running, and about the Slow Coach. So welcome again. Tonight's session on the rundown on mood and food is part of what we call our Slow Learners webinar series. I am the Slow Coach, and as you'll find out, I'm quite fond of puns. The Slow Coach was an idea that grew out of an awakening or a realization of mine, not only to do with how awesome running is, but how running has transformed my life in many ways, to do with my mental health, my outlook, my confidence levels. And when I find myself thinking about running and talking about running, in many ways, it almost has nothing to do with running. It's a weird thing to say, but as a running coach, I don't particularly like running very much. But what I absolutely love is who I am after the run. So the Slow Coach was an attempt to just have a bit of a broader, slightly more inclusive conversation about running. So many people, myself included, stay away from running or from any form of active lifestyle because we kind of feel like we don't belong. In my case, I felt like I didn't look like a runner. I couldn't talk like a runner. I didn't feel like a runner. I knew that I would be slow. And our biggest barrier to joining a running program or joining a running group is this fear of being the slowest and largest and least attractive person there. But if you can get past all of that, it's incredible to discover what running does to our lives. So in my case, running is an avenue to self-confidence and joy and time alone and time on my feet and time to think and all the things that running gives me. And I could talk for hours, and I often do, about running. And you'll find that it's got nothing to do with pace. Despite running for more than 10 years, I've never really got any faster. And it's just never mattered. So as a running coach, it's just something that I try to embrace and to say to everybody that we are all there for lots of reasons that have nothing to do with running. We want to be proud of ourselves, or we want to be able to have a longer lifespan, or set an example for our kids, or I don't know, earn a medal at our first 5K race. That's really what the Slow Coach is all about. We focus on every goal, every level, and everybody. And just quietly, quite proud to have been nominated as a finalist in our local Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Business Awards. So a little bit about running behind. You can see a picture of us taken just before lockdown on the St Ives Village Green. There's a fairly dedicated group of runners like myself who meet 2 or 3 times a week. At the moment, training is on a Monday at 7, a Wednesday at 5 p.m. and a Thursday at, I should actually say 9 a.m., sorry, 9 a.m., not 9:15. Babies, children and dogs are welcome at every session. I know how hard it is to juggle the logistics of life. If it's easier for you to bring them along, just bring them. We incorporate them into the training. Prams are great tools for resistance workouts. And as I've already said, it's a running group for all levels and all abilities. I promise you, I will almost certainly always be the slowest runner there. At the moment, you can buy a 10-pack to the Running Behind groups on the Run with the Slow Coach website for $120. As of yesterday, we are allowed to train once again in groups of 5. So it's 4 people plus myself, as long as you are fully vaccinated. I am a registered COVID safe business with the New South Wales government, And I am also an accredited level 2 running coach with Athletics Australia. If you can't run in groups, or perhaps you just live further afield, you might be interested in an online running membership package as an option. Once again, it's a package and a forum for slower, bigger, older, and injured runners. There are millions of amazing running membership packages out there at the moment. Most of them are incredible, but to the best of my knowledge, there aren't that many that are specifically catering for a slower demographic. So, I mean, I paid a lot of money for a running coach a year or two ago, actually, and just found that the packages and the training that they set me was full of a lot of assumptions, like a 2-kilometer warm-up and a tempo run at 4 minutes 45 a kilometer, and just things that were not realistic for me or for my body. So this is an online running package that takes all of those things into account. It includes a one-on-one consultation, a range of running plans to get you to your first 2K, your first 5K, your first 10, your first half, or even a sub 30-minute 5K, if that's your jam. Significantly, it also opens the door to a lot of discounts on races and gear, and I'll touch on that in a little bit in a few minutes. And also, as I've already mentioned, a knowledge center, videos, blogs, this webinar series, and more, all catered for bigger, older, slower, and injured runners. And at the moment, the ground running online membership is only $55 a year. And what's phenomenal is that you'll pay for that membership almost certainly just by the savings you make on the discounts that you'll get as a result of your membership. So that'll include 10% off Run Faster gear, 20% off Abby and Joseph, 10% off Active Truth. If you're local to the St Ives area, you can claim 10% off shoes at the Shoe Guru in the St Ives Village Shopping Centre and gets access to their incredible expertise about running shoes. Also, a huge range of race discounts to most major Australian races and a lot of overseas ones as well. And then some great product recommendations. And if none of that works for you, feel free to talk to me about one-on-one training as well. So obviously you'll get an incredibly personalized focus. Most 1-hour sessions will consist of a 30-minute warm-up, strength and mobility work, and then a 30-minute session of actual running. And depending on your level, that might consist of a walk-run combination. Sometimes it's a minute of walking and a minute of running, and we do that for 20 or 30 minutes. Or as your ability increases, there'll be a bit more running and a bit less walking. But obviously it's very, very individualized. And of course, you can also choose the day and the time of day that works best for you. Any paying client at the Slow Coach gets access to all the available discounts, and one-on-one training is currently $60 per session. But the other benefits of being part of the Slow Coach community are just how inclusive and supportive and warm everybody is. When we're allowed to, we have what we call social runs. So those are just fun community runs that absolutely anybody can come to. They're completely free. We try and take in a different section of the local streets each time and finish at a local coffee shop, because any runner will tell you the most important part of any running program is the coffee. If you can't run, you can walk or you can jog. Bring your kids, bring your dogs, bring your neighbors, bring your grandparents, everybody's welcome. You also get access to a really fantastic WhatsApp group, which gives you the chance to line up a running buddy or get some accountability or just get some applause for whatever run you did that day. Ask a question. It's a great forum. There's our Slow Learners webinar series, which we kicked off during lockdown. There's a monthly newsletter and access to all our webinar recordings. Okay, so that concludes the commercial messages. Thanks for your patience. If you have any questions, please reach out to us through the Run with the Slow Coach website or send me an email at hello@runwiththeslowcoach. So now, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my great friend and colleague, Penny Dillon. Penny and I actually met about 17, maybe 18 years ago. Our eldest sons were born at about the same time, and we joined a local mothers group. And that's probably been one of the biggest blessings in my life. The girls that met when our babies were a couple of weeks old, still meet regularly, usually once a week for coffee. 18 years later, we met as recently as Monday. These days, the kids don't come along. So Penny's been a great source of information and support for me over many, many years. What's rare about Penny is that not only is she a fully qualified nutritionist, she's also a qualified counsellor. So it's really phenomenal to have access to a mind like hers that is so full of this wealth of information, not only to do with nutrition, but also to do with our mental health and how the two connect. Obviously, we can support our mental health really through a lot of exercise, but obviously through food as well. And similarly, if you have a food question, she can actually counsel you on how to approach that, through your mental health as well. So she's going to be a really great asset to us. Penny is passionate about mental health, as am I, and she's going to talk to us tonight about the link between mood and food. So thanks very much, Penny. Can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Andrea. That's a really beautiful intro. Thank you very much for that. So as Andrea said, my name's Penny Dillon. I am a counsellor and nutritionist. Also having trouble with speaking tonight. I am going to just quickly share my screen. It is working properly. Okay, so the rundown on mood and food. So as I said, I'm a nutritionist and counsellor, and I'm really struggling to get my computer to work properly. There we go. Okay, so I am really passionate about mental health, and so what I do from a nutritional and a counselling point of view is I support both emotional and mental health. I really focus on practical strategies, so like practical strategies to help you stay calm, not feel so overwhelmed, manage your stress, and with nutrition, lots of things to help improve your sleep and your energy and your stress as well. So I also have 3 teenage boys, so homeschooling is a barrel of laughs at the moment, and a dog who's on recovery from knee surgery. So it's all happening in our household right now. So today I'm going to talk about our minds and our moods. So I'm going to talk about some of the sort of stuff that happens in your brain that impacts your mood. I'm going to talk about foods that are really good to eat for your mood, but I'm also going to translate that to, okay, well, what does that look like in a meal? So what do you eat and what do you need to buy? And then just a couple of supplements for anybody who's sort of interested in that, and then we'll go to question time. Okay, so in terms of brain chemicals, I'm going to give you a 20-second chemistry lesson, and that's pretty much it. So obviously, as most of you will know, our brain is full of neurotransmitters that are really important for our mood. And if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, that sort of white little granular stuff, that's the magic. These are neurotransmitters, and when they're released into a synapse, that's when they do their magic and they work. And for anybody who's been on like an antidepressant, a lot of those are focused on making that neurotransmitter stay in that area for longer to work its magic for longer. Okay, so that was what I was talking about before. That's the magic. Okay, so the first neurotransmitter I'm going to talk about is serotonin. A lot of you have probably heard of this, and it's basically the feel-good hormone. It's what makes us feel positive and happy and calm and confident. It also, a lot of it actually lives in the gut, so it's actually really important for eating and appetite and sleeping, and it's what makes us smile. If we don't have enough of it, that's when we start to feel anxious and depressed and grumpy, which I know that my husband can relate to at certain times of the day or the month or whatever it might be. As I mentioned, it's made in the gut. And the thing about serotonin is it's absolutely very much influenced by food, but it can also be influenced by thinking happy thoughts and getting out into the sun or the snow, for those of you who like to ski, doing a cardio exercise, getting out into nature, so having a bushwalk, and it's very much influenced by good gut health. The second one I want to talk about is called GABA, and that's probably something a lot of people haven't heard of, but it's a really, really important neurotransmitter, and it's what we like to call nature's Valium. So it's what makes us feel calm. It's the one that calms the farm. So if you think of a really, really hyperactive kid, like this dog chasing its tail that can't really calm down, it's often due to a lack of GABA. It's what makes us feel relaxed. It's super important for sleep. And when we don't have enough of it, we feel really, really wired and overwhelmed. And we're absolutely prone to feeling stressed and to having panic attacks. Again, GABA is very much influenced by food, but it's also influenced by yoga, meditation, and breathing. And the reason I want to talk about these things is because food is a really important part of the mental health picture, but it's not the whole picture. The other thing about GABA that can help increase GABA is talking to a professional. So having just talked about breathing, I was just hoping everybody could do a very quick exercise, and it'll probably take about 2 minutes. And I just want everybody to do a breathing exercise while we're here. It's a really good tool for if you're in the office or around people and you're feeling overwhelmed. It's something that you can do sort of very discreetly without people noticing, but to really help calm you down. So what we're going to do is we're all going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to breathe out for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do it one more time. In for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then out for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So next time, like the kids are doing your head in, or the dog's going psycho, or your husband's getting on your nerves, this is a really good way of just increasing that GABA and calming yourself down. So it's a tool that you've got on hand at any point that you can reach to. The second last thing I want to talk about is dopamine. And dopamine's what they call the motivation molecule. And this is really important because knowing how this works is a really good way of tricking your brain into actually feeling motivated. It's sort of self-perpetuating molecule. So dopamine is what makes us feel satisfied and rewarded and motivated. So it's what makes us feel good about something when we've finished a task or put in a puzzle piece or weeded a bit of the garden or hung out the washing. So it's also interestingly important for memory and coordination. And when we don't have enough, we feel unmotivated, we feel flat and depressed, and we also tend to feel stiff in the joints. And so it's very easy to boost. So all you need to do, as I said, is you need to finish a task. You can listen to some music, you can spend some time with your animal, go out into the sun, or also do some exercise. So go for a run or another form of exercise. Okay, and the last one I like to talk about is oxytocin, which is the love hormone. Everybody probably knows oxytocin is about childbirth and breastfeeding, but it's also a really important hormone for building trust and having empathy with others and having warmth and bonding, and not just bonding with your child, but bonding with your partner, bonding with your friends. Interestingly, oxytocin is highest in the first 6 months of a relationship, which is probably not surprising. It's also what makes us feel altruistic and generous and wanting to do things for people. So it basically kind of amplifies our emotions. And without enough oxytocin, we're prone to depression, anxiety, bipolar, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And the way to boost oxytocin, again, it's not only diet, but it's about physical touch. So 8 hugs a day is the optimum for boosting your oxytocin. You can hug your kids, you can hug your partner, you can hug a friend, you can hug your pet. It's also good for them. Even creating eye contact will boost that oxytocin. Massage, including self-massage, don't take that the wrong way, but even just sort of massaging, maybe, you know, like if you've got a cramp in your leg or massaging your arms can help. Giving gifts. No, it sounds a little bit odd, but giving gifts to people actually boosts your oxytocin, as does social interaction, being in a warm temperature. So that's why they say sometimes, you know, people in warmer climates tend to be friendlier. And again, listening to music. So what I want everybody to do is just hop into the group chat and just tell me anything that you think is a recurring theme, or just one thing that you remember from what I just said that supports mental health. Hugging, yes. Excellent. Exercise, of course, very important for pretty much all of our neurotransmitters. Awesome. Running, again, yep, exercise is super important. Yep, dopamine, great reason to run. And, you know, you feel that when you're running, you feel that release of all of those really good neurotransmitters. And GABA, first time I've heard about it. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go back to screen sharing. We've done that. Okay, so now you're all here to hear about food. So we're going to start talking about foods that are great for your mood. This is my favorite. It's not everybody loves bananas, but it is my personal favorite. Bananas really, really high in B6, which is a super, super important B vitamin. It's what we take when we've got sort of, you know, PMS, but it's also really important for serotonin, GABA, dopamine. It's got lots and lots of magnesium in it. Magnesium is something that a lot of people are deficient in. It's probably the most common deficiency that I see, mainly because there's not a lot of magnesium in the soil anymore, but it's also responsible for 300 different reactions in the body. Again, serotonin, GABA, oxytocin, and it's really important for digesting or metabolizing sugar. So for every molecule of sugar that we eat, it takes about 250 molecules of magnesium to digest that. So that's when they say, okay, well, sugar doesn't make kids hyperactive. No, it doesn't, but it saps all of their magnesium, and you need that magnesium for the GABA to calm you down. And so that's the link between eating sugar and becoming hyperactive. It's a prebiotic, which basically means it's good for gut health. So eating banana feeds all the lovely good bacteria that sits in the gut. It's got something on it called tryptophan, again, serotonin, and it also is important for something called brain-derived neurotropic factor. Big word to say, super important for your brain. Okay, avocados. Okay, so we talked about bananas. So avocados, full of B vitamins. So there's lots of B vitamins that are really, really important for your mental health, B2, B3, B6. They're also important for energy production. So avocados have something in it, B2, which is, they're important for the myelin sheaths. And for those of you who are older, you might have seen Lorenzo's oil growing up. But if not, if you can imagine in your brain, you've got all of your neurons, and I'm trying to show my arm here, and they're all wrapped with this thing called a myelin sheath. And that makes the message travel faster. So if that's not there, it actually takes longer for a message to get from A to B. So basically eating avocados makes you think faster. It's also good for anxiety. Avocados have got lots of B6. We talked about that. Omega-3 fatty acids, very, very important. Again, serotonin, very good for the central nervous system and gut health. Lots of dietary fibers. So that's feeds the good bacteria in the gut. And then we've got eggs. I love, love, love eggs. You know, red meat is really good for iron, and it's an important part of our diet, but a lot of us, myself included, tend to eat too much red meat. And I'm not a vegetarian by any stretch of the imagination, but eggs are a really, really good source of protein. Again, full of magnesium, lots of B2, B3, really good for protecting your neurons in your brain, lots of B6, and zinc. Zinc is the other deficiency that I see a lot of. Obviously, it's very important for our immune system, but every single neurotransmitter needs zinc to be produced. So it's a very, very common deficiency. Nuts and seeds, very good as a snack or for eating for breakfast or putting on top of salads. Again, B2, B3, B6, magnesium, zinc, and tryptophan that we talked about before. Every different nut has a different nutritional profile. So I say to people, just eat a wide variety of nuts. Have some almonds, have some cashews, have some walnuts, mix them all up together, have some Brazil nuts, whatever you like. And don't worry about them being activated or salt-free or anything like that. Just the fact that you're eating nuts is really, really good for your brain health. Leafy greens is a really obvious one. They're full of pretty much every single B vitamin, very good for staving off dementia and depression. Lots and lots of magnesium. They're full of dietary fiber as well. Now, no interaction with Andrew would be complete without talking about coffee. So coffee is too much coffee is not great for anxiety. And for anybody who's had full-blown anxiety, which is something I've experienced in my life, coffee is not great. But if you're not suffering from that, it's actually good for dopamine release. And teas are also very good because it reduces anxiety by something called theanine. So green tea, black tea, rooibos tea, all of those are really good for reducing anxiety in moderation. Fermented foods are super important for gut health. Gut health is pretty much the foundation of any mental health problem, because getting the gut right and absorbing the nutrients you need is the very, very first step to then working on that mental health. It's really important for that connection between the gut and the brain. Okay, it also increases GABA. Legumes, legumes are super important. So I've got a photo there of chickpeas, but that's red kidney beans, any form of lentils, peas. So again, B3, B6, magnesium, very, very good prebiotics. So legumes are great for gut health. If you have IBS, you need to be irritable bowel, you need to be a little bit careful. They can tend to flare up irritable bowel syndrome, but if you don't have that issue, it's really great to include them as part of your diet. Okay, and again, tryptophan, which I mentioned before. Okay, oysters. I like to mention oysters because they are so incredibly high in zinc. So one single oyster is half of your recommended daily intake of zinc. So it's 5 milligrams of zinc. So if you take 6 oysters, it's the same as taking a high potency zinc capsule. So I'm not saying eat them every day, but it is a lovely thing to be eating on a regular basis. And then if you're having a special treat, you can feel good about them. Oily fish is really important for those really good fatty acids that are good for the serotonin and the dopamine, full of B3, B6 and zinc, and magnesium as well. Okay, so that's all great. Everybody's like, okay, well, here's all these things I need to eat. What I want to do for you guys is actually break it down and talk about what that looks like in terms of what you might eat on a daily basis. So the first thing on the right there is smoothies. And I love these smoothies because you can put in a banana, so you've got all your B6, you can put in some leafy greens, so you've got your magnesium, and you've got your fiber. You can stick in an egg, so you've got some protein and you've got some zinc. And then if you've got a sort of NutriBullet or a fairly good quality blender, you can throw in any form of kind of seeds or nuts, and that increases the amount of protein and makes it sort of a proper breakfast that is more likely to fill you up. Really, really good for gut health as well. And I like smoothies because, you know, you get up overnight, your body's had a chance to sort of detox and cleanse everything out, and now you're feeding it with something that's going to feed all the good bacteria. Okay, in the middle here, we've got some pasta, and everybody might be thinking, oh, hang on a tick, what's going on here? So if you buy a pulse pasta, you're actually getting sort of, you know, very, very low carb, but you're also getting all the beautiful legumes that I talked about before. So again, good for gut health and fiber. And you notice there's some clams on top, very, very high in B12, which is quite hard to get in your diet. So they're a great source. And then the last thing there is life-changing loaf of bread. So this is probably not for everybody, but for anybody who's not terrible in the kitchen, which is what I would classify myself as, not great, but not terrible. It's basically a loaf of bread that you make yourself, and it's primarily sunflower seeds and either oats or quinoa flakes, and some other nuts and seeds in there, and it's all held together with psyllium husk. And if you Google life-changing loaf of bread, it'll come up with a big long blurb about it and then some instructions on how to make it. I generally make 3 loaves at a time, and then I freeze it, and it usually lasts me for about a week. You can have that with peanut butter, you can stick some smoked salmon on it, you can put some tomato on top, it's usually better toasted. A couple more meal ideas. So there's some breakfast with some life-changing loaf of bread underneath, and a nice lovely egg, so you've got some protein, and then some rocket. And rocket is really good for stimulating digestive juices and making sure that you digest your food properly. Lunch or dinner, I like to say salad's a great idea, but salads are well and good, but if there's not enough protein in there, you're going to get hungry, and then you're probably going to eat something bad. So here we've got some rocket. So again, leafy green, full of magnesium and B vitamins. And we've got some eggs, so lots of protein to fill you up. And also eggs have got lots of zinc and B vitamins in there as well. So again, great for mental health. And then on the right here, we've got a frittata. So that's kind of something that you can make and serve for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So I'm a big fan of that. Lots of eggs. You can stick pretty much any vegetable you like in there, zucchini, carrot, broccoli, whatever's in the bottom of the fridge. I like to throw some tomato in there, and I confess we often put bacon in there because my teenage boys are more likely to eat it. So that's a few ideas in terms of food. So that's sort of all great, but then everybody might be thinking, well, what on earth does that look like when I head to the supermarket? So most of the stuff that I've talked about, you can either make quite easily or you can buy from Woolworths, is where I shop. So fermented foods in the middle of there, we've got some kefir. So that's just a fermented yogurt that you can buy all ready to go. You don't have to make it yourself. Obviously, bananas are easy. Mixed nuts, they don't have to be from a health food store. Just your average or, everyday mixed nuts are perfectly fine from the supermarket. Hummus is full of chickpeas, which is great for gut health as well. We've got some rocket and salad mix there, so you don't have to buy anything special. And we've got some tuna, again, just from a can. It's lovely to buy things fresh, but if we talk about the practicality of eating well, you want to make sure it's easy for yourself. And one of the ways to do that is think about the logistics of what's in the house and what's easy to put your hands on. Okay, and then supplements. I don't prescribe supplements for everybody, but it sort of depends on what the overall health picture is. So it's really hard to say to pick one or two supplements and say this is what everybody should take. But I mentioned before that a lot of people are really, really low in zinc. Again, it's another thing that tends to be deficient in the soil. And also we use up a lot of zinc every time we get sick. And every time we get anxious or stressed, we plow through the zinc. So that's why all of those foods that I talked about before, so the eggs and the nuts and what have you, are really important, because if you're stressed, you're plowing through that zinc and you need to replenish it. And another way of doing that is buying a zinc supplement. This one on the left here is from a company called iHerb in the States, and it's my preferred type of zinc. I find it's the one that is most tolerated. Never take it on an empty stomach because you might feel a little bit nauseous. Magnesium, so you can obviously, buy some magnesium from Blackmores or whatever, but I like this one in particular because it dissolves really well and it's very strong and it's very well tolerated. And then probiotics are really good for mental health, that are sort of really good general all-round supplement for people who are struggling with gut health, because if your gut health isn't working properly, then you're on a very slippery slope to having digestive issues and then mental health issues as well. So the last thing I'm going to do before we move to questions, and I've plowed through that presentation very quickly, is we're going to do a grounding exercise. And this is really good for anybody who is struggling with anxiety. And if you find you're catastrophizing or fortune telling or like playing things out in your head that are probably not going to happen, but you can't get out of that overthinking things. And so what you need to do is get out of that space where you're like overthinking things and bring it back to the here and now. And so the exercise to do that, it's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Okay, so we might go back into the chat there, and I'm going to get everybody to write down 5 things you can see. I'm going to go into the chat now. I can see my screen, my hands, my water bottle, my light, and my phone. Okay, so yeah, see right now. Okay, so Mandy's laptop, phone, water bottle, wallet, lamp, very similar to mine. Sally can see her bike, calendar, carpet. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is 4 things that you can touch. Okay, so I can touch my desk, my pen, my mouse, and my headphones. Okay, so then 3 things that you can hear. And it could be the buzz of the light, It could be my voice, could be hubby in the background making us dinner, could be the dog barking, neck cracking, TV. Okay. So then I want you to write down 2 things that you can smell. Okay, so I can smell my dinner and I can smell the rain from earlier today. Melanie can hear a tinnitus. Okay, and last, one thing that you can taste. And for most people, it'll either be the coffee that they just had, the glass of wine, or maybe it's just their saliva. Okay. So you do this, again, this is a really good exercise you can do if you're sitting at your desk and there's people around you and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're overthinking things, or you could be lying in bed at night and you just do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And it just brings you back into the here and now. I find some people this exercise resonates really, really well with, and other people, they find that the breathing technique resonates better, and some people that they find both. So, so yeah, that's just a little tool that if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling overwhelmed and you're struggling with your mental health, that's a really good tool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move to question time. So who's got a question? It can be about anything to do with mental health, food, nutrition, diets.
Well, I'll kick off. Penny, I think lots of us on the call are runners, and I in particular struggle often after a run, particularly if it's been a biggish run. I'm quite tired and sore for the day.
Yep.
And at night, I get very jumpy legs and they drive me crazy because I can't rest, I can't unwind, I sit in front of the TV and I literally just drive myself and my whole family mad because I jump.
Yeah.
What, if anything, can I do about that?
Okay, so there's 3 reasons that your legs jump. Okay, so when you're lying in bed at night and you just feel that you need to move, 9 times out of 10, it's actually iron. So taking a good quality iron supplement or making sure that you're getting enough iron in your diet is a really good way to resolve that problem. So having, you want to be careful with iron if you've got hemochromatosis. Then you obviously want to be very careful with iron supplementation. But for the average woman of our age, we do mostly tend to be low on iron. So taking a good quality iron supplement. I used to recommend Ferro Grade C from the chemist, but there's actually another one called, I think, Multifor, which I find works better. Or you can buy one from somebody like Bioceuticals. So that's if you feel like your legs need to move. If your legs are jumping like this, so you're lying in bed and your leg just randomly jumps, then the likelihood is that's magnesium. So you can also try magnesium for the, I feel that I need to move. So the magnesium that I recommended earlier, which is a water soluble, will work incredibly quickly. But the other thing you can do is you can go to Woolworths, you can buy yourself some Epsom salts, and you pour 1/3 of a box of Epsom salts in a bath, and you can absorb all that beautiful magnesium through your skin. It's really, really easy to absorb magnesium through the skin, and it works wonders. The 3rd reason, which is less likely, if your legs are sort of kind of like vibrating, so they're not jumping and you don't feel like they need to move, but they just won't sit still, is that tends to be zinc. So it's probably quite a complicated answer to a question, but it kind of depends on what they're doing. So then in that case, I would be taking a zinc supplement or eating 6 oysters.
Oh, oysters sounds great. I can see, thanks so much for that. It was really helpful. I suspect in my case, it's a combination of all 3 of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to take a look at some of those supplements.
Yeah.
I can see there's quite a few questions coming up in the chat, so I'll just ask them in no particular order. Melody asks, what are your thoughts on amino acids for recovery?
I'm a big fan of amino acids, and they're very, very helpful for mental health as well. So like like I mentioned before, tryptophan is a really good one. So in terms of amino acids, I like to recommend a very kind of pure form, because as I'm sure you guys know that a lot of the time when you buy a protein supplement, which is obviously full of amino acids, they tend to have a lot of sugar in them. And so I know my son tried one, he's like, yeah, this tastes great. And that's because it's full of sugar. So I tend to recommend either a raw Amazonia or a Great Lakes hydrolyzed collagen, which doesn't taste of anything. And I've got one client who just mixes it up in her cup of tea. And so that comes in a sort of big green sort of cardboard bottle or cardboard container, if that makes sense, cardboard cylinder. And again, I buy that from iHerb because I find it's probably the best option, probably better than most of the supplement companies that I use.
Wow, thank you. That's really thorough. Shireen asks, I'm a vegetarian and I eat most of what you have recommended already, but I still struggle to get enough iron. Do you have a supplement you recommend?
So if you want to get something from the chemist, it's called Multifor, but I probably tend to recommend, I usually use a Biomedica iron supplement instead, which has a lot of the cofactors in it that can help you absorb your iron. That's a practitioner only. So then the other option is bioceuticals, which everybody would have access to, is iron sustain. So I'm going to write that down. So bioceuticals, iron sustain. I find it's also better tolerated and less likely to cause gut issues than maybe your standard ferrograde C that you would get from the chemist. I'll write down the protein supplement as well. Protein supplement. Yep, okay.
Cool. Maybe we can include those. We're going to email everybody on this call. We'll get a copy of tonight's recording, so we can just include some links to whatever is feasible for Penny. We'll make sure we include those as well.
Yep, that's fine.
Anya says, you mentioned yogurt kefir. What are your thoughts on water kefir? I have kefir grains and make it myself as a probiotic.
Yeah, so I don't mind water kefir, but I find it's not quite as strong as a yogurt or a milk-based kefir. But the flip side of that, so because the milk in it is actually designed to kind of grow the good bacteria more efficiently. Having said that, you know, most of us on this call are older, and so too much dairy is not great for women of our age, not great for menopause, not necessarily great for skin, and too much dairy also tends to unfortunately be a precursor to breast cancer. So I'm careful about the amount of dairy that we prescribe. So if you've got a family history of breast cancer, or you really struggle with dairy, then water kefir is a really good alternative option.
Wow. You're very knowledgeable. Thank you. That's awesome. Sally says she's heard that gum health is directly related to gut health.
Right.
Would you agree?
Yes, it's probably something that I don't necessarily specialize in, but the biome of the mouth is quite important, but it's not something that I'm sort of completely versed in.
Oh, totally fine. You're incredibly well versed. Robin has asked, would you be able to add a list of your preferred supplements in the email? I'm sure we can do that. Yeah, no problem, Robin. You'll have that in a day or two.
I've been writing that down.
Awesome. I think there was one, I think I missed, Kirsten said, tell us more about this life-changing bread and what's in it that makes it so life-changing.
Okay, it wasn't my name. I didn't come up with the name Life-Changing Loaf of Bread, but it does make me laugh. Okay, so lots of things I like about it. So a lot of people struggle with weight, and you know, it's so easy to get up in the morning, pop a couple of pieces of toast in the toaster and eat that for breakfast, and that's, you know, what a lot of people do, but it is not great for weight. There's not a lot of nutrients in your standard white bread or even your wholemeal bread. They've taken all of the good stuff out of the grain and chucked that out, and you're left with just sort of the crappy, unnutritious part. So Life-Changing Loaf of Bread is a great alternative for people who really like their toast or their bread, So that's number one. Number two is it's got psyllium husk, which is a form of fiber, which is really good for gut health. It's got sunflower seeds in there that are really high in B vitamins, including B6 and magnesium. So they're good forms of protein. They're non-animal forms of protein. Again, I like I like sitting down to a steak, but everything in moderation. So obviously it's got those nutrients in it that are really good for gut health, and it's really, really filling. So it's a really good way to displace something that might not be great in your diet, because a lot of people struggle with what to eat for breakfast. It's usually whenever I counsel people on their sort of dietary choices, dinner usually is a tweak, lunch is maybe some changes, but breakfast is where everybody gets stuck. And so life-changing loaf of bread, you can have some of that. You can stick some good quality peanut butter on it, or just some butter. It is better toasted. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds great. By the sounds of it, it would also be a really good source of slow-release carbohydrate, which is something we as runners look for, and especially for those of us who are preparing for a race. So often before a race or before a milestone run, we'll spend a couple of days deliberately seeking food that have higher sources of slow-release carbohydrates. By the sounds of it, this would potentially be an ideal option.
Yeah. So Robin's made a really good point there. She has dark rye sourdough for brekkie. She's got IBS and she can tolerate that. So it sounds like life-changing loaf would be a bit of a trigger for IBS. So I make it, instead of making it with oats, which can cause a little bit of issues for IBS, I make it with quinoa flakes, which is completely fine for IBS. And then in terms of the nuts that I put in there, I put IBS-friendly nuts in there. So I tend to put in pecans and walnuts and steer away from the cashews and the almonds. And the other main ingredients are sunflower seeds. You can put pumpkin seeds in there as well. And so those are all fine for IBS, but I totally hear what you're saying, because that's not a great way. If you've got irritable bowel, having something that triggers it is a terrible way to start the day, because you're starting off on a trajectory of pain and discomfort for the whole day. Sally wants to know where you can get the life-changing loaf of bread recipe. I will include it. I'm just making a note. I'll include it in the link. But literally, if you Google life-changing loaf of bread, it's a very interesting name. But anyway, if you Google it, it'll come up.
Some copywriter somewhere did an absolutely brilliant job with that name, because we all want it. There we go. Shireen's already shared the link.
Oh, there we go. Well done. Yeah.
Thanks, Shireen.
Yeah, my new roots, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, I think I can't see any other questions. We've got a minute or two, so if you have a last minute question, please pop it in the chat. Otherwise, I will just conclude with a very warm, very sincere thank you, Penny. That was just an unbelievable, almost avalanche of information. Clearly, you're so knowledgeable and you're so generous with that knowledge. So thank you so much. And thank you very much for everyone on the call. Please let us know. We will email you in a day or two with our contact details, so that if either Penny or myself can help you with any aspect of your mental health, of your nutrition journey, or with your running, we really would be delighted to do so. Yeah, lots of thank you notes coming in on the chat. So thanks so much from me. I just wish you a very pleasant journey and happy running. And I hope to see you at the next webinar. Just keep your eye on our social media for details. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.